Texas inauguration. New leaders take the stage as we bring you coverage from the South Lawn of the Capitol. What's the one topic Governor Greg Abbott's inaugural address shares with the state's last 8 governors? A look back at their historic speeches to find the answer. The oath of office, its importance, and the man who administers it. Our interview with the Texas Supreme Court Chief Justice. And with Abbott sworn in, Texas' longest-serving governor says goodbye. The politics that could push Rick Perry to the presidency.
I, Greg Abbott, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the
duties of the office
of
Governor of the State of Texas.
With those words, Gregory Wayne Abbott became the 48th governor of Texas. Hello, thank you for watching this special inauguration edition of State of Texas In Depth. I'm Josh Hinkle, and today we join you from the South Lawn of the state capitol, where thousands gathered this week to mark the start of a new era in state leadership. Greg Abbott transitions from Attorney General, a post the Republican held for 12 years, during which time he sued the Obama administration more than 30 times. Danny Scott Goeb, or as we know him, Dan Patrick, becomes the 42nd Lieutenant Governor of Texas after serving as a radio talk show host and a 2-term Republican state senator. Organizers of this day spared no expense, raising $4.5 million for the inaugural parade down Congress, the 4,000-seat ceremony, a barbecue featuring 4 tons of brisket, and a concert headlined by country favorite Lady Antebellum. But the ceremony itself drew the biggest turnout. An estimated 4,000 were lucky enough to snag a seat. Hundreds of others stood to watch. Our Phil Prazen has this inside look at the busy but historic day.
God bless America, my home sweet home.
That song strikes a chord with Robert Simmons, who came early to get as close as he could to the stage. He found out his first inauguration would be more emotional than he expected.
God does bless America in so many ways.
After 24 years in the U.S. Air Force, he's here to watch a display of freedom he fought for and hear words of praise from the governor and lieutenant governor.
Their extraordinary service has secured our freedom.
I'm kind of sentimental in that respect.
Robert came here with Douglas Dixon, who served with him in Vietnam.
It's neat because we fought for the freedom that we saw here today. And we're not alone. I mean, the ones that paid the ultimate price. And yeah, we both lost some friends.
The book of Matthew reminds
40 years after that war ended,
all things are possible.
They drove here from Lubbock and Granger to reflect on the past together and hope for the future. Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
It never received a Senate hearing.
So what brought us here? The 2014 election really started in the last legislative session when Democratic Senator Wendy Davis gave an 11-hour filibuster to stall a bill that would restrict abortions. She waited a few months before entering the race for governor. While she received support from donors across the country, her campaign lost to Greg Abbott by a larger margin than Bill White did in 2010. In the race for lieutenant governor, the Democratic side was settled early. Senator Leticia Vanderpute faced no challenger. On the Republican side, it wasn't so clear. 3 candidates challenged incumbent David Dewhurst. Dan Patrick gained the most votes, but not enough to prevent a runoff. In May, he defeated Dewhurst outright. And in November, he won the general election. To get to know your new leaders better, here's some background. Greg Abbott brings a unique perspective to the governor's mansion. Unlike his predecessor, Rick Perry, he was never a legislator. Instead, he spent a career in law as a state Supreme Court justice, then Attorney General. Abbott is the first University of Texas at Austin alum to become governor since the 70s. In 1984, a tree fell on Abbott while he was running, paralyzing him. Ever since, he has needed a wheelchair. Dan Patrick came to the Capitol a different way. As we said before, he was a radio man, owning the station that brought Rush Limbaugh to Houston listeners. He was elected to the state Senate for the 2007 session. Over the next few sessions, he eventually became the Senate Public Education Chair.
My son is a criminal court judge. He's going to swear me in. I don't know if we've ever had a son swear in a lieutenant governor or any statewide official. And I told him he owed it to me because when he won his election to be a judge in Houston, a criminal court judge, I swore him in.
We're honored to have the opportunity to represent the people of the state of Texas in the People's Mansion.
Those were highlights of my one-on-one interviews with both Abbott and Patrick in the days leading up to the inauguration. You can watch the extended version of those interviews now in the politics section of KXAN.com. Coming up, we speak with the man on stage administering the oath about the moment Texas got a new governor when this special inauguration edition of State of Texas In Depth returns. It's small, old, and plain, but this Bible plays a very important role in Texas inauguration history. Governors have laid their hands upon it, swearing allegiance to the state for more than 150 years. Perhaps the mystery of its origin is just as interesting. Commonly believed to have once belonged to Sam Houston, whose victory at San Jacinto secured the independence of Texas from Mexico. Houston, a former governor, is best known for bringing Texas into the U.S. as a state, and many experts agree the handwriting in the Bible is Houston's. Welcome back to this special inauguration edition of State of Texas In Depth. Holding that Bible stacked on top of a family Bible given to Greg Abbott by his father, Texas Supreme Court Chief Justice Nathan Hecht administered the oath of office to the 48th governor of the state of Texas. Thank you, Chief Justice, for being with us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So you were up on stage with Greg Abbott. You had the Sam Houston Bible holding it. What was that moment like for you to be up there? It was your first inauguration to be Chief Justice, correct?
It was. I've sworn in a lot of people over the years and just finished swearing in the Senate and the Speaker. But it's always a momentous time because it's a transfer of authority and power in a democracy that's peaceful and orderly, and it's always a very moving moment.
You were closest to Greg Abbott as the oath was going on. Kind of tell me what his demeanor was like. What did he look like? Was he nervous?
He wasn't nervous, but he was very serious. And sometimes, you know, he's taken the oath before many times, and it gets to be kind of something that you just go through the motions and then it's over. But Governor Abbott was pronouncing each word, and you heard him at the end, "So help me God." And when Audrey leaned over and hugged his neck at the end, he was visibly moved.
He used to be on the Texas Supreme Court. It's that kind of neat to have that, you know, relationship with him.
It is. We had a justice who went to the governor's office about 125, 30 years ago, and we've had a governor come be on the court, but it doesn't happen very often, and it's very exciting to see Greg do that, and I know what a great judge he was, and he'll be a great governor.
Obviously, as a legal mind yourself, you know, you have to look back at Greg Abbott's history, being a justice, a lawyer, attorney general. A lot of the issues that he's had to deal with on the legal side are still playing out politically here in Texas and on the national stage.
Being a judge has given him two great things. One, he can see both sides, because judges have to be able to see both sides. Two, he's got very strong principles too. And I think those traits that he had as a justice on our court will serve him very well as governor.
When the federal government is dealing with an issue that Texas has already ruled on, like gay marriage right now at the U.S. Supreme Court, you know, how does that make your job and the governor's job more challenging?
In a federal system like ours, federal courts can decide state issues sometimes, state courts can decide federal issues. Of course, in the end, the ultimate authority is the United States Supreme Court. And that particular issue is going there now. They've agreed to hear that. And we should have a decision from them in June. June. Sometimes we go ahead and decide issues as they come to us. Sometimes we defer to our federal counterparts.
And what are your thoughts on the gay marriage fight on the federal level?
I don't really, not really able to speak to the issues, but I know that they've been very well developed and will be thoroughly argued in the Supreme Court.
Any other advice for the governor or the lieutenant governor?
I wish them well. I think they're both patient, they're both strong, they both want the best for Texas, and I think they'll do great jobs.
All right, good job up there. Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you.
I, Rick Perry, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the Constitution and laws of the United States.
So help me God.
From the Sam Houston Bible to the south steps of the Capitol, governors over the last half-century had another thing in common on their inauguration days. A look back at the one hot-button issue popping up in each of the state's 8 most recent former governors' speeches. Next on State of Texas in Depth. This week, Greg Abbott became the first Texas governor in modern history to use a wheelchair. Something to think about as he moves into the governor's mansion, built 134 years before laws required public buildings to be accessible to the disabled. But an arsonist work just a few years back forced a complete restoration of the downtown Austin site. So it now needed only minor fixes for the Abbott family. The fire brought upgrades to bathrooms, doors, and an elevator for ADA compliance. And now workers are installing a ramp for Abbott to get a view from the upstairs balcony. Welcome back to State of Texas in Depth. Every Texas governor since 1856 has called that mansion home. They all started their tenure the same way too, delivering their first inaugural address. We took a look at the past 8 governors' first speeches in office and found they all featured only one major topic in common: education.
So help me God. Congratulations, Governor Connolly. Thank you.
In 1963, Governor John Connally's inaugural address foretold the Texas we know today, economically competitive and rich in jobs. He also predicted the challenge in holding on to those points, investing in education.
The riches in Texas today are in large measure a return on such an investment made in the youth of Texas by those men of vision long years ago. They wisely committed the resources of this state to the support of education of the first class in their time. And we must renew that commitment and re-endow the future with greater investments today.
Connally's concerns matched his successors. Preston Smith's 1969 speech urged education quality and equality for students no matter their economic, racial, cultural, or social background. He said, "We seek fairness for one school as compared to another." 1973's inauguration had Governor Dolph Briscoe calling for an adequate bilingual educational program, perhaps foreseeing the Hispanic population would become the fastest growing in the state today.
I said I would have an announcement in the next few days.
As Texas neared 15 million people in 1979, its population brought Governor Bill Clements back to the connection between schools and jobs, pushing his plan to improve the system to give our children the basic building blocks they need to develop meaningful careers.
That we would be given this kind of reception, and it's a real thrill.
1983's ceremony had Governor Mark White calling for better teacher pay and retention, saying we must demonstrate to our teachers that they occupy an honored place in our society.
America's marching forward. We don't march backward.
Ann Richards spoke of her vision of a child picking up a textbook one day and seeing how historic the 1991 inauguration really was.
Today we have a vision of a Texas where opportunity knows no race, no gender, no color. A glimpse of the possibilities of what can happen in government if we simply open the doors and let the people in.
Like a true Republican, George W. Bush stressed local control of decisions involving schools in his 1995 speech.
Texas must set high standards for our schools, free our local districts to innovate, and hold our educators responsible for results.
And Governor Rick Perry had his own educator on stage in 2003, a teacher from the school he attended as a child, thanking her for teaching him to believe in his future and the future of Texas.
All of the answers may not be found this legislative session,
but we will work until they are found. And these issues will be addressed during this administration.
We posted each of those governors' inaugural addresses online in the politics section of KXAN.com. You'll also find the text to Greg Abbott's entire inauguration there. He also featured education, even bringing one of his teachers from Duncanville High School up on stage with him. While we're talking about history, we should point out Governor Abbott's wife, Cecilia, who is now the first Latina First Lady of Texas. The granddaughter of Mexican immigrants, she was always at her husband's side during the campaign, and many say her background helped him with the state's fastest growing population. Coming up.
I appreciate you for this one final opportunity to speak to you in the chamber where it all began.
Farewell to Texas' longest-serving governor as we predict a presidential run. And with the inauguration out of the way, state lawmakers dive deeper into their legislative session. Next on State of Texas In Depth. It's not only a new governor and lieutenant governor, there are also a lot of other new faces in the Capitol as the 84th Texas legislative session got underway this month. Welcome back to State of Texas In Depth. 24 first-term representatives and 8 new senators. It will be one of the most conservative legislatures in Texas history. Lawmakers have already been officially working for a few weeks, busy tackling issues like the open carry of handguns, school funding challenges, paying for highways, and property and business tax cuts. Lawmakers already said goodbye to Rick Perry, who delivered his farewell address just days before his successor's inauguration. Now we take an in-depth look back at the state's longest-serving governor.
I mean, really the end of an era. You know, if you're in 8th grade, you've known no other governor of Texas but Rick Perry from the day you were born.
After 14 years in office, Rick Perry suddenly has some time on his hands.
Well, maybe he'll just relax a little bit. You know, clearly we assume that he's going to be announcing that he's running for president at some point, maybe in the early spring.
Of course, in the next few months, he'll be busy, courting donors and building a team for his possible presidential campaign.
He's been studying to be president in a way. I mean, he's had advisors come in and talk to him about foreign policy.
But with an indictment hanging over his head and that meltdown in the last presidential run.
And let's see, I can't. The third one I can't, sorry. Oops.
Perry will likely be challenged, like in this MSNBC interview.
And are you smart enough to be president of the United States?
I think the standpoint of life's experiences, running for the presidency is not an IQ test. It is a test of an individual's resolve.
By late spring or early summer, we should hear Perry's announcement if he'll run. We'll keep you posted on air and online in the political section of KXAN.com. And we'll be covering lawmakers' decisions here at the Capitol during the entire session, a session now under the leadership of a new governor and lieutenant governor. I'm Josh Hinkle. From all of us with the KXAN political team, thank you for watching this special inauguration edition of State of Texas In Depth. Have a great day.